Well, hey fans, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Spoilers, and today we're talking spoilers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is like the 27th or 28th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, directed by Sam Raimi after Scott Derrickson backed away from the project due to creative differences. And everybody knows that Sam Raimi has directed one of the best comic book films of all time, Spider-Man 2. He's known for the horror franchise Evil Dead, Drag Me to Hell, things of that nature. He loves horror, and even in like his old Spider-Man movies, he would incorporate some horror elements. So he just seemed like the perfect choice to direct this film. And even if he took like a 9-year break from directing, and this is like his first film back, like people were very excited. But there's a lot to talk about this movie, including what I thought of his directorial style and the writing. I believe I gave it a 7.5 over on the website for the full written review, so head over there and check that out. But just jumping right in, we're going to go over some story beats, some plot holes, some silly things, just a lot of things. I'm going to be all over the place like I always am. But let's get into it. So the film starts out with Defender Strange and America Chavez. They're in the space between universes, but you find out what it is, and they're running from like this bandage, mummy-looking monster. And so they're trying to get to the Book of Ashanti, which is like in the middle on this platform. And so, like as they're getting close, Strange freezes the monster, and they get almost there. Then he traps it in bricks because it escapes the ice, and then he realizes, all right, we can't escape this monster. It like stabs his leg at one point too, and it starts like infecting him, and he starts to like slowly decay or something of that nature. So he just immediately starts draining America Chavez's power, and in doing so, he's killing her. And she's basically telling like, "You're killing me," which that line is so cheesy. There's a few cheesy lines in here. But he's like, and he spouts his most like his famous line, like in the grand calculus of the multiverse, like your death is insignificant or something like that. Like it's best what's best for the multiverse, and the monster escapes before he can finish draining her energy and stabs him through the chest, critically injuring him at this point, and it captures America Chavez, and of course she gets scared, and boom, she opens like another star portal that starts to suck her through. So Defender Strange, with his last little bit of energy, creates a spell that cuts the bandages of the monster, and it lets America go, and it pulls him and her through the portal. And we don't actually know what universe this Doctor Strange is from, because we meet him in the space between worlds, and we don't know how they got there, unless he like America helped him get there, or if he also had some kind of portal there. But we don't know anything about his universe other than that he has a ponytail. But so, and then Doctor Strange wakes up having seen this take place in his dreams, and we do learn later on in the film that whenever you have a dream, whatever you're doing in that dream is you peeking into your life from an alternate universe or alternate timeline or whatever, however it's explained. Like when they're going to another universe, they'll know, hey, we should try to find another you. But America's like, well, I'm the only me in any universe. There's only one of me. She says, how do you know? She says, I never dream. So she never has any dreams. She just goes to sleep. So that's how she knows there's no other versions of her in another universe. But so he wakes up, having witnesses his dream, puts on a nice suit and heads to a wedding, and it turns out to be Christine Palmer's wedding. He meets Dr. Nicodemus West there, and they have like a funny little chat, which is also has some emotion to it, because he's like, I lost my cats because I was blipped, because nobody was there to take care of them. And then Strange is like, okay. And then he says, I also lost my brother because his brother died his brother wasn't blipped and died in the 5 years that he was blipped, so he didn't even get to say goodbye. And it was like a heart-wrenching moment. And he's like, I like to think to myself, was there another way? And Strange looks at him and tells him there was no other way. And then, they go through the wedding. He talks to Christine, and they confirm, like, are you happy? She's like, I am. And she's like, are you happy? And he's like, I am, but he's clearly lying. And, they talk about if things were different, and she says, like, she could accept him the way he was, and she could love him but she couldn't love him for it because she wanted more from him. Since he always has to be in charge, but clearly he still loves her, and it turns out like she wants her husband to meet him because her husband's a big fan. But they hear a commotion outside. Strange goes out and he sees like these cars just being knocked around by some invisible force. So he like finishes his drink, and this is a pretty cool scene. He jumps off the balcony, like pulls the cloak of levitation out of nowhere, and like flies down and like reveals the tentacle monster, who is Gargantos, although he's modeled after Shumagorath. And so here's the funny thing about that. Due to like some naming rights with the Conan the Barbarian franchise, they couldn't call him Shumagorath, so they chose Gargantos, who's a similar looking monster from the Marvel comics. But they don't mention its name at all in the film, so they could have just named it Tentacle Monster. They didn't have to name it Gargantos, and people would have been like, "Oh snap, that's Shumagorath," because he's like a famous fighter from Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and the Marvel comics. Like, just don't give it a name, and we'll be like, "Oh, that's supposed to be Shumagorath." So, but he fights it. He recognizes America Chavez from his dreams because he's like, "Well, how is she here? That's only supposed to be a dream." Wong shows up. They both fight the monster. And a cool thing about Strange is this: like, he uses magic in this film, and I like that it's not just energy constructs. Like in the first Doctor Strange film, when they did magic, it seemed to just be like energy whips and energy constructs. They did the cool like glass blades that were also energy, but that's like to the extent of what you got. In this one, he's like summoning giant dog heads and demon arms. They're summoning chains and swords, snakes, like all these cool things. I think there was a Hydra at one point. So I like seeing magic like this. It's very similar to how Doctor Strange performed magic in the What If television series. So yeah, I like that. But they managed to defeat the monster like by pulling his eye out with a pole, and they go to a pizza joint with America Chavez, and she basically says she's from another universe and that she can travel between the realms. They're like, "How can you do that? That's impossible." She says, "But I can do it." And they have her prove it, and she shows them Defender Strange's dead body, which they bury like at the top of a building under some bricks. And it's funny, Strange's like, "Not the first body I would have to hide," which is like, how many people are you just killing? Like, is this like what does Strange do besides protect the Sanctum? Like, if there's not a magical threat, I don't know how often they actually get involved. So like, how many magical threats are there on a yearly basis that we just don't know about? So that's pretty interesting. But they decide, all right, we have to take her to Kamar-Taj, and we'll get some help on this. Do we know anybody who's like... Because they realize witchcraft is what caused the monster to attack. They said, "Do we know any witches?" And Strange's like, "I think I know someone." So he goes to Wanda. She's at the farm from the end of WandaVision. And, they start talking about the multiverse and Vision and if she can help. And then she's like, "Well, why don't you just bring America here and, she can be safe." And then Strange stops and she's like, "You never mentioned her name, did you?" And he's like, "I didn't." So then she like breaks the like hex down so you can see what the world really looks like. And you can see that she's been reading the Darkhold and everything's all red and dead and decayed. And here's like my first kind of problem. Like, Strange tries to talk her down. He's like, "Using the Darkhold is dangerous. This isn't you. It's corrupting you. Come on. And your children aren't real. You don't need to do this." And I feel like there should have been more. And I guess, of course, they don't have like that much of a connection. Like, and they talk about how like at the end of WandaVision, like how like you made things right and we let you go. Like, he apparently knew about it, but he didn't do anything. And apparently, like those commercials in WandaVision, originally it was supposed to be Doctor Strange was trying to communicate with her through the commercials, and they cut it out because they didn't want him to take away from the show being about her. But I really think they should have left that in. It should have been Strange or Wong like trying to communicate with her. And like in the last one, I think he was actually supposed to appear. He was supposed to be the doctor giving her the prescription for Nexus. Like, and that's like a small cameo. They really should have kept that in there because it just seems so disconnected here, their relationship. But he tries to talk her down, and she's like, "Look, just give me the girl." She spouts his line like in the grand calculus of the multiverse, her death to be insignificant. And he's like, "I'm not going to let you do this, Wanda." And she's like, "All right, this is your final chance. I'm coming to Kamar-Taj to get her. And if you don't hand her over, then you're going to be dealing with the Scarlet Witch." And she uses the name. And it's just like the Darkhold has apparently corrupted her so much in between WandaVision and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness that she's just insufferable now. And there's like no stopping this plan she has. But at the end of WandaVision, she seemed to have let all that go. Like, I get it, my kids aren't real, Vision's dead. I need to move on. And yes, she took the Darkhold and she awakened her power. But for me, at least, at the end of WandaVision, it seemed like she was reading the Darkhold, and when she heard her children, it was like her children are in trouble in another universe, and she was going to do whatever it took to save them and cause like a mess along the way. But in this one, it's like, no, she wants to go replace some other Wanda and take her kids. It didn't really sit right. The writing, I think, could use more polish on that. But either way, she attacks the Comertage, which I remember it being like in the middle of a city in the first film. But now, and with magic, I mean, you can explain away anything really. But it seemed like it was in the mountains all of a sudden, and there wasn't a lot of city around it. Maybe I just didn't get a second look at it. I really do have to go see the film a second time. Just have not had time after my first IMAX screening. But she goes and she's trying to attack them. They put up like a shield. And this is some other cheesy stuff. Like the wizards, sorcerers, whatever you want to call them. They're like running around, marching, doing all these things. And it's like, they don't do that. They just fight. Like, they didn't do that in Avengers Endgame when they showed it. They didn't come out marching and doing all this silly stuff. It's like, they're just there to train. They're very, like, relaxed. So it was like a totally different set of wizards, sorcerers, whatever you want to call them. I'm just going to keep mixing up from the first film. It's like a disconnect there. And I get it's a different director, different writer. There's a new Sorcerer Supreme now because Wong is Sorcerer Supreme. I get the difference, but it just seemed terrible. And I'll get to Wong. Wong is a terrible Sorcerer Supreme, by the way. I'll get back to Wong. So she attacks. They're putting up shields so she can't get in. She finds a weak-minded sorcerer and convinces him to run. And this one sorcerer running caused the entire show to break down, so she gets in, literally kills so many sorcerers. It is wild. And then she's still trying to get to America. They trap her into the mirror dimension, which you shouldn't be able to get out, but she's Scarlet Witch, so it turns out from the mirror dimension you can attack the real world via reflections, which is totally new mythos. So she starts pulling in wizards through like water reflections, and then at the very end she sees America in a puddle, and America tries to cover the puddle, but then she comes out of this like shiny brass bell thing. And this is like a really creepy scene, and I love the way it's shot because she's pulling her way out of the mirror dimension, which is cutting her up, and like you see like these gashes all over her body and face as she like heals herself. It looks like a Babadook or just some creepy monster. And of course, since it's MCU, that it's like red energy pouring out of her and not blood when it should have been blood. But she heals herself and takes out Strange and Wong and captures America Chavez to start draining her power, which apparently is so easy to drain power from people. Like this, this is something that Mordo was doing in the first film, and it's like, oh, this must be some kind of dark arts, but no, it's just regular magic. Hey, you want to drain somebody's magical power easily? Do it. But she gets scared, opens the portal, and then Strange tackles her through it, and then they escape that way. And they go through all these dimensions. There's like a futuristic dimension, a feudal dimension, a black and white dimension, a water dimension, a paint dimension. Other dimensions, so many, I didn't have time to look through. The black and white dimension could be the Spider-Man Noir universe, but they don't make the effort to go into what these dimensions are. But they arrive at some utopian dimension, which has like a rainbow sky and plants growing everywhere and futuristic technology, and great. It is great. So going back to Wong being a terrible Sorcerer Supreme. Actually, no, I should save that for later. Because he says something later that proves how terrible he is. So they go to this dimension, and this is where she tells him we should find the Strange in your universe. They walk around, and they find this futuristic machine that, like, if you step on it, it will play your memories. So Strange steps on it, and it plays like one of his dates with Christine Palmer after he like graduated with his MD. And when she gives him his watch that he loves so much. And then the America steps on it, and we see her mom's at the utopian parallel. I think is the universe she's from, and she's picking up flowers, and a bee comes and stings her. It scares her. She opens up a portal, which sucks both her moms through and her. And apparently they got sucked somewhere that she didn't, so she's never been able to find them. They're in some universe where she assumes they're dead, because they could be in any universe. So after that, Strange kind of talks to her about it, but she doesn't want to talk about it. They meet the Pizza Papa, who is Bruce Campbell in this universe, and that was a funny scene. Strange makes him beat up himself with like his left hand, which is very reminiscent to Evil Dead. I enjoyed that aspect. If you watch the Evil Dead movies, you think that scene was hilarious, especially once you get to the end stinger. But also in this universe, you find out that red means go and green means stop. So that was a slightly funny scene. But they meet Mordo. He's kind of standoffish at first, and then he says, "Welcome. I knew one day another Strange would show up here." And he sees basically their Strange has a statue where he died fighting Thanos. He sacrificed himself, and so they talk to Mordo. Mordo like sedates them with tea, and they pass out. They wake up in like a cell where he meets the Christine Palmer of this universe who works for the Baxter Foundation, and they take him before a trial of the Illuminati. Now, back in the real world, Wanda is sleepwalking, which is when you enter somebody's body in another universe. So Wanda sleepwalks into the Wanda in this universe's body where she has kids, she's happy. Another wizard shows up and destroys the Darkhold. So Wanda can no longer sleepwalk because she doesn't have the Darkhold to read the spells. She goes to Wong and she's like, "Where's another copy of the Darkhold?" And he's like, "There is no other copy." She says, "There has to be something. If you don't tell me, I'll kill every wizard here and then I'll destroy the world," or something like that. And so she starts torturing these sorcerers, and then Wong's like, "Mount Wundagore. They say the Darkhold was transcribed from the spells written on the walls there." Like, he just tells her that. She doesn't have to torture him or mind control him to do it. He just tells her where she can like keep creating more evil. Whereas if he didn't say anything and just died like a man, like he was willing to do in the first movie, die rather than like do stuff like this, tell the villain how they can make the movie keep going, it just seemed like poor writing. This was an instance in the film where Wanda should have mind controlled him or entered his mind to find out about Mount Wundagore. Him telling her was a betrayal of his character, in my opinion. It just made him seem like a terrible Sorcerer Supreme. That plus the events in Spider-Man No Way Home. Anything else that happened under his watch is like, dude, you're awful compared to the Ancient One when she was Sorcerer Supreme. So they go to Mount Wundagore. These demons show up. They bow to Wanda, and she realizes she sees the image of the Scarlet Witch behind her, and she starts sleepwalking again and takes over that other Wanda's body. It's a pretty gnarly scene. They have like some 90s music and aesthetic going, and she looks in the camera and everything like that, and just leaves to go find America in that universe. So Strange is meeting the Illuminati, and this is when we're introduced to Carl Mordo again, Captain Carter, the First Avenger, Blackgar Boltagon, who's played by Anson Mount. Okay, Captain Carter is played by Hayley Atwell, of course. Blackgar Boltagon is played by Anson Mount from the horrible Inhumans TV series, but he has a comic accurate suit. That's pretty good. And then you get Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, who is played by John Krasinski. We won. We got him. They cast him in the role, and he's actually pretty good in it. And I actually skipped over Captain Marvel, played by Lashana Lynch, Maria Rambeau. She's also on the Illuminati. I can't believe I skipped over her, but yeah. So she's basically Captain Marvel, but black. But the thing about John Krasinski is, this leads me to believe that John Krasinski is the Reed Richards of the main, the Sacred Timeline, of the main MCU. Because if it wasn't him, they would not waste the casting on John Krasinski. It should have been Ian Grufford. So once that Fantastic Four movie comes out and we get news of casting, if it is not John Krasinski, I think this was a waste of a casting choice. I would rather see Ian Grufford come back from those old Fantastic Four movies. But if he is the main timeline Reed Richards, then it's perfect casting. So that's how I feel about that. And speaking of John Krasinski as Reed Richards, this was the only audible, like, hooray moment in my theater when watching the film. Like, you see Professor X and Captain Marvel, Captain Carter, all these people, but when John Krasinski appears on the screen through his portal and says, "Hello, Steven," that's like the only time my theater actually cheered out loud. Like, you would think for a movie of this caliber there would be more cheering at more moments, but no, that was practically the only moment. And then the final member of the Illuminati who comes up is Charles Xavier, played by Patrick Stewart. He's in the yellow chair and the green suit from the X-Men animated series. They even have like a little da-na-na-na-na-na like that plays in the background when he shows up. So they basically lead you to believe in this universe you have the Fantastic Four, you have mutants, and you have Inhumans. Like, everybody is in this universe, which will lead me to why it's stupid what happens next. So, or it could be smart considering where they want to go after this movie. So they put him on trial and they tell him the truth about what happened to their Doctor Strange, the time, since it's a different universe, you don't know the timeline of how things happen. So their Doctor Strange was looking for a way to defeat Thanos, which in the main timeline he doesn't really know about Thanos until like they come for the Eye of Agamotto. But he finds the Darkhold, he starts dream walking to see what he can do in another universe, and then in these other universes he ended up causing an incursion, or almost causing an incursion, or whatever, and he tells them about it. But then he helps them find the Book of Ashanti, and they use that to defeat Thanos. They just use the Book of Ashanti to defeat Thanos. We're not told how they managed to defeat Thanos. When Professor X does the mind illusion and shows them Planet Titan, Thanos's sword is stabbed through his chest, and he has the Infinity Gauntlet on. So we don't know how many stones he has at that time in this universe, or whatever. But speaking of Infinity Stones, Doctor Strange still wears the Eye of Agamotto. There's no Infinity Stone in it, but he still wears it, even though he's not Sorcerer Supreme. Wong should be wearing it as the Sorcerer Supreme. It has some kind of magical power still, but we just don't know. I think it's just something else they looked over. But so this Strange still felt like he was corrupted from using the Darkhold, even though he's helped them save the universe. So he's like, look, you guys got to kill me because I don't think I can stop using the Darkhold. And they make it seem like it's like a drug. Once you start using it, you can't stop using it. So he gives them the cape and has Black Bolt talk to him. And Black Bolt's voice will destroy anything. So he's disintegrated, and they're all sad about it. But they move on, and they make the memorial in his honor because people need heroes. They need to know Doctor Strange died on Titan sacrificing himself. And I guess in the universe it's well, where's Doctor Strange? Oh, well, he just died, and that's what happened. Instead of but it's only them there. It's the Illuminati. Those are the ones who are fighting Strange. We don't get to see any other mutants, any other Inhumans, any other Fantastic Four. This universe should be stacked with heroes, and the fact that none of the other ones are seen, I think this movie should have been very cameo heavy. I don't think they all should have gotten speaking roles, but yes, it should have been very cameo heavy for Multiverse of Madness. And we only really spend time in this main other Illuminati universe instead of a Multiverse of Madness like I assumed we would. But Wanda, of course, shows up sleepwalking in the other Wanda's body, who in this universe, she should be a mutant because Professor X here, this Wanda's a mutant, and there should be a Magneto and a Quicksilver running around somewhere else. And that's another thing. I'm going to take a little sidetrack here about Wanda. She only wants to find her kids. Never does she mention wanting to find the father of her kids, Vision, in another universe. She doesn't ever mention wanting to find her brother in another universe. I think they failed in this aspect as well. When she goes to this other universe, we don't see another version of Vision. We don't see another version of her brother. It would have been great to just if they had small roles, her brother comes over to visit, she sees her brother still alive, she sees Vision's there, she have everything she lost, but she's only focused on her kids. It makes her seem like a crazy lady, which she is because of the Darkhold, but you get what I'm saying. So she shows up, and Strange's like, let me go, she's gonna kill you all, and they're like, we can handle her. So they go to handle her, and boy, oh boy, so Reed is trying to talk her down, and this is why I like John Krasinski's role. He's really trying to talk her down in the beginning. He's like, look, we don't want to do this, let this Wanda go. This isn't your universe, this isn't right. And she's like, do you have kids? And he's like, yes. Do they have a mother? And he's like, yes. And she's like, good, there'll be somebody left to take care of them. And he's like, Wanda, look, Black Bolt can destroy you with a whisper from his mouth. And this is the most gangster line in the whole movie. She's like, what mouth? And then she pans over to Black Bolt, and his mouth is gone, and he freaks out and screams. But when he screams, since he doesn't have a mouth, it reflects back and blows out the back of his skull, and he just falls down and dies. It's so gangster. But here's the problem with that: it makes for great cinema. I love it, but Black Bolt has been trained since his youth, ever since he accidentally killed his parent, to not use his voice unless it is really necessary. Him losing his mouth would not cause him to freak out and scream. Okay, it wouldn't cause him to scream. It would cause him to freak out, but he knows to remain calm unless he sneezes or is in real pain. So him freaking out, it's an alternate universe. This Black Bolt could be totally different, but yeah, it's he wouldn't do that from a comic book sense. He'd just kind of be like, she bested me, let me fight another way. Then Reed, dumbass, oh my goodness. So Reed, after Black Bolt dies, tries to stretch his arm out and grab her. I'm like, what are you gonna do, Reed? What are you gonna do? You're smart, but you're only stretchy. There's use some technology or something. But he does that, and she just turns this dude into spaghetti. It's so heartbreaking seeing John Krasinski die like that. But yeah, just little spaghetti Twizzler pieces and pops his head is wild. And then, of course, Captain Carter and Captain Marvel start to fight her, and they do a pretty decent job until Captain Carter, she also says the line, "I can do this all day," and she's not decapitated, bifurcated by her own shield. And they don't like show too much blood, but we see like the top of her body sliding off of the bottom of her body, but you don't see the bottom of the body, you just see her slide over. See that, and then Captain Marvel starts fighting her, and it's pretty evenly matched, but Wanda gets the upper hand and like pulls like a statue down on her. Now I don't think that Captain Marvel is dead in this universe because of how powerful she is, especially if you see in the What If series. Like, she takes pretty much a planet being destroyed to kill her. I think she is incapacitated, but I think the only survivors of the Illuminati in this universe are Captain Marvel and Baron Mordo. Now, also in this universe, and this might be how they redeem Wanda later, and I think this would be cool, so there's another little side skirt. They still have all the Infinity Stones, presumably in this universe. Mordo is still alive. I think he'll use the Infinity Stones to revive the members of the Illuminati who were killed, and like that will let them know, okay, this Wanda's powerful, and this will cause a multiverse war, because they're like, we need to go to that timeline and just wipe out this Wanda and wipe out anybody in there who could cause an incursion level event. That's what I think should happen, but who knows? They could just be dead. We'll see. Strange and Chavez escape. Wanda chases them, and she like tries to. They like go under like some tunnel under the river, under the Brooklyn River, I think, or some river in New York. They flood her, and they enter the space between worlds to get to the Book of Ashanti. But Wanda comes in, captures America, mind controls her to take them back to their universe, and sends Strange and Palmer to a destroyed universe. And then she lets that Wanda go, and that Wanda's like, my boys, and she flies off back home. Strange, they're in like this destroyed New York, and then they find a more sinister Strange who also has been using the Darkhold, and he started sleepwalking into other Strange's universe, and like he was like, we never get Christine, we're never happy. So he started sleepwalking to other Strange's bodies and killing them, making them jump off of roofs and stuff, because he's like, I ended their misery. And that's like an interesting touch that this Strange was doing that. But they end up fighting using music notes, which is actually, it was pretty cool for a little bit. It's a little cheesy, but I liked it. And he ends up knocking him out a window and killing him. And this Strange also has like a third eye on his head from using the Darkhold, which is strange because like Wanda doesn't get a third eye when using the Darkhold. And this Strange has been using it for a while. Our Strange ends up getting a third eye as well from using it once. Doesn't make sense. So he decides to sleepwalk into the dead Stranger Strange's body in our universe, and ends up skipping ahead a little bit, makes his way to the Mount Wundagore, where he is about to be taken over by dead spirits, because you're not supposed to like possess dead bodies. Necromancy is a non-starter, kind of like what Agatha Harkness said. So he ends up overpowering them, taking control, and turning them into like this awesome Cape of the Dead. It's a pretty sick scene. And he flies over there, fights Wanda a little bit, realizes he's too weak, and then America like gets to strength, and she's like, okay, you can kill me. I realize my power will be taken, so I need something to happen. And Strange's like, no, you can control it. I believe in you. And this probably ties from the fact that when he was talking to the Sinister Strange, he tells him about they had a sister who died. She fell through some ice when they were ice skating, and they were unable to save her. And he's like, we don't talk about that. And she's like, no, we don't talk about that. So that really does. That I did like that aspect of Strange's backstory on why he is so intent on saving people. What drives him in his arrogance because of what happened to his sister really shaped the man who he is today. So America and Wanda fight, and of course it's a one-sided fight because Wanda just mops the floor with her. But what America does at the very end is that she like punches a portal back to the Illuminati universe so that Wanda can actually see the other Wanda. And she wants the kids, but the kids are scared of her. And these kids aren't shown to have powers, which is weird. I don't know why they didn't show them having powers. But that Wanda's like, just know that they will be loved. Alright? So America escapes with Wong. Wanda destroys Wundagore Mountain, and of course the corpse Strange is by her, so that we see like a flashing red light before the building totally collapses. So she either is teleported away or something of that nature. We don't know exactly where she is. She signed like a 7-picture contract after WandaVision, so I'm sure she'll be back and they'll try to redeem her. We'll see how it works out. We'll probably have to be in Secret Wars, which I'm assuming she was teleported away for. Maybe, we'll see. That's basically the end of the film. America gets Doctor Strange and that version of Palmer out of the Sinister Strange's universe, And like they talk about, Strange says how no matter what the universe, I love you, and she's like she loves him too basically, but they can't be together. They're from different universes, and she's like it'd be one hell of an incursion. Uh, but they part ways, and it's kind of a sweet yet sad moment. I like that aspect as well. It goes back to the main timeline. America is training at Camartage to hone her skills and become a sorcerer, and she says she's happy she met Strange, and he says the same. So Strange goes back to New York Sanctum, where he's, the movie ends on a happy note. He's walking down the street, and he gets like this headache, and he falls to the ground, and a third eye opens, and a smash cut to the end credits, which is like, oh snap, that comes out of nowhere. What's the next credit the next little stinger gonna be? So the first stinger, he's fine. It's like, this just happened, and now he's fine. It didn't make any sense. And like Clea shows up, played by Charlize Theron, and she's like, "You caused an incursion, and you're gonna help me fix it." So she opens a portal to the dark dimension, and he like turns his scarf into the cloak of levitation, and he opens the third eye on his head and says, "I'm not scared, I'm ready," something like that. And it's like, now he's all of a sudden fine with this third eye, or is this a totally different Strange that we don't know about? Like, there's a lot that could be going on in this film. And overall, I enjoyed the film. I do think it was a tad too short. It should have been longer for a multiverse film. Like I said, should have had cameos galore. Like, so many cameos. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that. Could have brought back so many characters from other films. And like I said, I don't think they need speaking roles. Like, you could have just had them be in these separate universes. They could have explained more about what happened with Spider-Man. That was kind of glossed over. Another thing, mentioning the other universes. So, when Sam Raimi directed Spider-Man 2, he has a reference to Doctor Strange when they're trying to name Doc Ock. And they're coming up with names, and he's like, Science Squid, no. He's like, ooh, Doctor Strange. That's a good one, but it's already taken. I was so sure we would pop into the Raimi universe, the Raimi Spider-Man universe, and we'd meet that Doctor Strange. It would have been fantastic if they had did that. And he should have been played by Joaquin Phoenix, because Joaquin Phoenix was originally going to be Doctor Strange in the MCU, but he didn't want to sign a multi-film contract. And in a world where we have Loki and Spider-Man No Way Home, where you see these variants who look different, we could have had more Strange variants played by different actors. They were all played by Benedict Cumberbatch, which was fine, but I would have liked to have seen more variation in the variants, if you get what I'm saying. I think that's it for me, guys. I mean, this is really long, and I don't want to go on too much longer. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the third Doctor Strange film. Hopefully, we don't have to wait. Like, okay, this film is like 6 years. The first Doctor Strange came out in 2016. It is now 2022. That's a long wait in between Doctor Strange films. To put it in perspective, there was an entire Spider-Man trilogy in the MCU in between these films. So hopefully, the third Doctor Strange film comes up sooner than later. And it would be great to see exactly where they move forward with this character. Hopefully, we do get a Secret Wars, and it takes place after that, and he becomes Sorcerer Supreme again. I do think Wong eventually does have to die, because he died in the first film before Strange revived him, and some deaths are absolute points in time. We'll see what they do. And going back to America Chavez, like, she's been touted in the media as the first openly lesbian MCU character, which she is in the comics. But in the film, like, at no point does she mention that she likes girls, that she's LGBTQ plus, or any of that. Apparently, there's like a pin on her shirt that explains that, but they don't say anything. And she mentions having two moms, but she's from another reality. Like, we know nothing about that or her in general in that aspect of her life. So I think it was misleading for them to say, yeah, we got America Chavez, yeah, she's gay, go MCU gay people, when it's not really mentioned at all. And I also feel like with this film, traveling the multiverse, this was the optimal time to introduce Kang in a post-credit scene. Uh, like with Jonathan Majors coming back, even if for a slight tease, if he was controlling the Illuminati, or if he's like everything's going according to plan, something like that. But we don't get to see him at all. And I just found that to be strange, and that's my personal opinion. I mean, like, the Bruce Campbell stinger was pretty funny. It's very Raimi-esque, and the Clea mention where she's like, "You caused an incursion." It was great. So, but I just would have liked to have seen Kang in a story of this nature. And you really need to see WandaVision to get what's going on with Wanda in this film. I don't think you can skip WandaVision and watch this movie. You can probably skip Spider-Man No Way Home because they don't really make a lot of reference to him. But yeah, you definitely need to understand why she wants these kids so much, even though she apparently let them go. But that is it for me, guys. Remember, you can view this spoiler review on YouTube and the blog flipfrogllc.com/flixfrog. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. And please, pretty please, everybody, hey, come here, listen. Make sure that you subscribe. Yes, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, everything. Make sure you like, comment, and share. The next Let's Talk Spoilers is going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. This will be the first Star Wars series that I review. I normally like to leave those for my own personal enjoyment, but this is Obi-Wan. We're getting Darth Vader. I have to go into that. So, yeah, we're going to do it. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.